before we start with the story of Yosef, we have to finish off first what we didn't finish off, unfinished business with Yehuda. Because what happened was that we already talked about what happened with Tamar, right? This mistaken thing that she was supposed to be killed, and Yehuda saved her, and this was considered to be a very noble thing, right? That he saved her life like that, and also his children were actually right there, twins he had, right? So now we're going to talk about the birth, because
the sons of Tamar were
from Yehuda, right? They were from Yehuda, yeah. So what happened was that now, right, came time to give birth. So Tamar all of a sudden, right, is giving birth, labor pains start, right? And it says in the pasuk, Teomim baby Tana, right? It says there's twins in her stomach. They saw, right? There's two babies there. In those days, they didn't have those, things they have now, the CAT scans and all these things. You can check the gender, ultrasound, whatever they call that. You can't. They didn't have those things. They didn't know what was in there. So until it came out, they didn't know what was going on. Basically, that's the way it was in those days. So they're coming out, two of them all of a sudden. You say, oh wow, there's two of them. So right, but here there's one difference, right? That the Chazal point out. That also when Esav and Yaakov were born, it also says Teomim, Bebitna, right? Rivka had also twins in her stomach. Also here by Tamar it says also there was twins, right? But there's one difference between there and here. You know what that means? That means that one letter is missing over here. The Aleph, right? Teomim can be written with an Aleph, or it can be without an Aleph, right? That's the way it is, by the way, in Hebrew, the way it is you can write something full, the word full, or you can write it also chaser, right? Meaning lacking, right? There's two ways to write in Hebrew. So what happened over here was, here it's written full, and over there, in the case of Esav and Yaakov, it's written lacking. Right? So the question is why? Why do you, what kind of discrimination? Why are you changing over here? Sorry, what are you saying?
What does that mean?
That means that one letter is lacking there, right, in the word, Teomim. So now I'll explain to you what that means. What that means is, right, say the Chazal, the reason over here was written fully and over there was written lacking is because over here, right, both these children were tzaddikim. They both were righteous. The children of Tamar were both tzaddikim. Over there, one was a rasha, you understand? Over there, Esau was a rasha and Yaakov was a tzaddik. So therefore it's written lacking in order to tell you, right, that really, you think you have two, but you really have one. Meaning you have one human being and the other one is like an animal, basically. You understand? Living like an animal. So therefore, right, that's the reason why it's lacking over there, and over here it's not lacking. So now all of a sudden, yes, I'm sorry.
Ed and Onan, some children of Tamar.
Ed and Onan were not twins. They were not twins. Right. They were right, exactly.
They were the ones that died before.
Right, exactly. They were the sons of Yehuda. They were the ones who married Tamar. Right,
but neither of them could give her a child.
So they could.
What happened to the third son?
We'll talk about that now. But you're talking about Shelah, right? The third one. He stayed, by the way. He stayed alive. Staying alive. He stayed alive, and.
To give Tamar children.
I'm sorry.
Why didn't they make him marry Tamar and?
Because as we said last week, right, the reason was because Yehuda was afraid to marry him off to Tamar. Because he thought that she she has this bad luck where all her husbands die. Right, exactly. So because of that he withheld, he withheld the Shelah to Tamar. Even though he already grew up and he was old enough to get married, he withheld. So what happened was now, right, giving birth, and we see, right, that one very strange thing over here, what happens, right? There's a midwife over here, the nurse, who's giving, nowadays we have doctors who do this, but in those days there was like a midwife, a nurse, who gave birth.
Midrash? You're reading from Midrash? Or
I'm sorry?
That's a Midrash?
What?
The story of the birth, the midwife.
From all kinds of sources we're bringing over here, right? It's not we're not giving you one product over here, we're giving you
one of my brothers
smorgasbord, the buffet, we're giving you a buffet over here. Okay, so we're trying our best, we're trying. According to our limited knowledge. So anyway, the point is, right, there comes now, all of a sudden, two of them in there, and one sticks out his hand, like this. Hi, starts waving. Hi, how are you? So he sees, right, the midwife sees that this one's sticking out his hand. He probably wants to come out first, He wants to jump out of there already. So what happens is, right, he takes like a scarlet, like a band, thread, right, and ties it on his finger. Right? Why? Because in those days, right, it was very important. Even nowadays, by the way, but in those days much more. They had to know who was the firstborn. Right? It had to be clarified. Why is that? Because the firstborn gets a double share of the inheritance. Right? Let's say the father is a millionaire. Right? He's got $500 million or whatever. So who's going to get double share? The firstborn will get double share. So you have to know who's firstborn. Right? So therefore, that's why she did that. Right? To tie that thing around that string around his hand. So what happens is that all of a sudden now, once she ties that string around his hand, the hand goes back inside, right? All of a sudden, it disappears, Oh, Oh my God, the case of the disappearing hand. So what happens now is all of a sudden the other one, did like a dive, somewhere exactly, dived out of there, jumped out and beat him to the punch. You understand? So this guy who they thought he was going to be the firstborn, he turned out to be now the firstborn, not the firstborn, right? So that's the reason why when the other one jumped out, right, and made his mark on society, right? He was a macho man. So what happened was that since this event was done by this kind of like acrobatic feat, they jumped out like that. So therefore they called his name Peretz. This is the reason why they gave him this name. Why? What does Peretz mean in Hebrew? It means to make a breach, to break, you break a fence and you go through, just devour the fence and devour the wall, just like you ever see a tank, that just devours the fence and just mows it over and just goes through. That's what he did, this guy. So they called him Peretz because of that, because he made a breach to jump out, right? That's the name. That's the name you called him. And then the second one comes out right after that, and they see, right, he's the one who they put that crimson thing on his finger. Right, but he wasn't really the firstborn, so that's what happened, right? Once they see that really this guy's the firstborn now, and the other one is not, they called him Zerach, right? Zerach. That's what they called him, and this was also a sign of what happened over there. Why is that? Because Zerach in Hebrew, you know what that means? What does it mean, Zericha? The word Zericha. Right? Did you ever Zericha means like shining, right? When the sun comes out to shine, it's called Zericha. So they call him Zerach. What does that mean? Why? Because they put that shiny band around his finger. So because of that, they called him Zerach, because he had that shiny thing around his finger. That's the reason why. So both these names were given according to how they were born. Just like Esav and Yaakov, by the way, it was the same idea, right? They called him Yaakov because he was holding his heel. They called him Esav because he was already asur, he was already finished, right? He was hairy, like a grown man, That's why they called him Esav. So each one gets a name like this, you understand, according to the circumstances that he was born under. That's the idea, So that's why they're both born. So basically what happened was that Yehuda had now 3 sons, right? How was that? 2 were born over here, right? Peretz and Zerach. And then he had Shelah from the other wife, right, who already died. The first wife died. So therefore, altogether, Yehuda came out with 3 sons, right? And by the way, even though he had 3 sons, definitely the most important one, the prominent one is Peretz. You know why? Because the kings come from Peretz, Mashiach comes from Peretz, right? All these things come from Peretz. So therefore, Peretz is considered to be the royal family, right, of Yehuda. That's the royalty there. You understand? All the other ones that come from Yehuda, from Zerach and Shelah, they're also going to be prominent. Like ministers, governors, lords, right? All kinds of things like this. But they're not going to be kings. The kings only come from Peretz. That's the difference, right? That's the reason why there's distinction.
Based on your tribal association,
and
the family you come from, you have a position in Israel like that.
When it comes to Malchut, kingdom, right? So there is something like that. Regarding other things, no. So what does that mean? The truth is, right, as the Chazal teach us, by the way, important thing you should know. Chazal teach us. I'm sorry? Right, there's actually 3, right? There's 3 of them. So what does that mean? The Chazal say, right, there's 3 crowns in Israel, meaning what? Prominent positions in Israel. One is to be melech, to be king, right? That's one. By the way, king and president is the same thing. President is king. That's what it means. It's just that, sometimes the king has more power than the president. It's more absolute. But basically, these 2 words in Hebrew, right, nasi, which is president, and melech are interchangeable. They're considered to be one and the same.
Yehuda was technically a king.
I'm sorry?
Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was technically a king.
Exactly. When they call you nasi, that means you're the king of Israel, right? That's what it is. Yeah. The Chazal teaches that, by the way. So anyway, the point is, getting back to what we said, is that there's 3 prominent positions in Israel. One is to be the king, right? That's only to Yehuda, and his Peretz and his offspring. By the way, we're going to also discuss that there's kings that come from Yosef. We're going to discuss that right in a few minutes. We're going to get into that also. But most of the kings, the final kingdom, the real kingdom, right? The kingdom which is everlasting, it belongs to Yehuda. So that's taken by Yehuda. You can't take that from him. Understand? There's no way you can grab that from him. You can take it sometimes temporarily. Sometimes they appoint a king temporarily who's not from Yehuda, not from Peretz, from a different family, but the everlasting kingdom only comes from them. the one that's never broken up, the one that's never ending, until Mashiach comes, right? Until that time, it's going to be like that as well. But there's also Keuna, right, which is the priesthood, right? That means that what? These are the ones who were working in the Beit HaMikdash to bring the sacrifices, right? Those are called the Kohanim. They come from who? From Aaron. So if you don't come from Aaron, you can't be a Kohen, right? You can't just, buy that position with money or with prominence or with wealth or, you have a whatever. Nobody cares about that, right? So you have to be from Aaron. There's also the third one, right? Prominence, which is the Chazal say, right? It's the greatest prominence out of all of them, which is what? To the Torah. When a person knows Torah, when he's knowledgeable in Torah, he's Chacham in Torah, he's a big Talmid Chacham, big tzaddik, whatever. So a person like that is considered to be above everybody, right? He's better than the king. He's better than the Kohen. Where do we see that, by the way? It says in Pirkei Avot. If you look over there, Pirkei Avot, you'll see, right? It says that the keter, the crown of Torah, is considered to be greater than all the other crowns. So what does that mean? That means that since anybody can acquire Torah, any Jewish person can learn Torah. Doesn't matter who you are, right? You can be, Petre, this or David and this one and this one. Doesn't make it that what your name is. You can be Jimmy and Mike and you can be this guy and that guy. As long as you're a Jew, you were born a Jew, you can study Torah, become a great Talmid Chacham, you can become the Gadol Ador, you can become the great rabbi of the generation. Nobody's stopping you. So what does that mean? Anybody can acquire that. You understand? Any Jew can acquire. So there is no hierarchy regarding that, right? By the way, what did they say? The famous saying of Chazal is what? That Talmid Chacham Mamzer Adif Mi Kohen Gadol Amaretz, right? What does that mean? That if you're a Talmid Chacham and you're a Mamzer, you're illegitimate, right? God forbid, right? You came from illegitimate union, right? Let's say from adultery, whatever, this kind of thing. So a person came from a dad, but he became a Talmid Chacham, he's considered to be greater than the one who's Kohen Gadol, right? Priest, right? The Kohen Gadol, because the Torah is greater than everything else. There's no status like the status of the Torah, right? This is the greatest thing. So by us, by the Jews, right, you can acquire a status by how hard you work to acquire Torah. Doesn't mean there's no other. You don't have to be anything else. You don't have to be handsome. You don't have to be tall. You don't have to be rich. You don't really need any of these things. Sometimes it's even better actually not to be these things if you want to really acquire Torah. Why? Because when you're handsome and you're tall and you're rich, it usually distracts you. You want to do other things. Go to vacations and fly around and see the world. All kinds of things. Whatever. Check out this place, that place, and these girls and those things. You have too many things to do, right? So the truth is, right, to acquire Torah sometimes better to be just an ugly duckling. Short, ugly duckling, who's got no money. And then you can sit and learn Torah all your life, because nobody wants to hear from you anyway. Nobody wants to look at you, right? So therefore, you can acquire more Torah. So that's the whole thing by us, by the Jews. That's the way we are. Okay, so anyway, getting back to what we said all the time. As we said, right, now, all of a sudden, comes back to the narrative of Yosef, after the narrative of Yehuda. It links both of them together. Why is that, by the way? Because really, right, as you know, we already mentioned, right, that all the tribes, the 12 tribes, all of them were big tzaddikim and big gedolim, big rabbis and big chachamim. But especially the greatest were Yehuda and Yosef. What does that mean? Greatest in what? If you're talking to me that they were greatest in Torah, it's not really true. They were all great in Torah. All the brothers were great in Torah. All the brothers had great knowledge in Torah. All the brothers were great chachamim. So then what was it that Yehuda and Yosef had that the others didn't really have? So you know what it is? It's more like the midot. You know what I'm talking about? The character traits, right? The leadership qualities, patience.
Also, their mothers were real wives of Jacob.
Right, but there was also other ones who were also from the real. Most of them were from the real wives, right? So they were all real wives in the end, right? Really true. Right. Actually, in the end, they all acquired the status of a real wife, as we mentioned, right? They all started to acquire the status. They started out as maidservants, but in the end, they all got the status of a real wife. Anyway, the point is, Rabbi, that when it comes to character,
they had the most compassion, right?
These two had the most compassion, you're saying?
Right.
Well, you know what it is? They had, I think, better character. You're right. Character traits, compassion, nobility. It's like a noble character. That's what it was. You understand? More patience.
Yosef the greater because he comes from the union of Rachel and Yaakov.
The truth is, right? They say that if you want to know, the truth is, right? They say that who was really in this world. Rachel was the main wife of Yaakov Avinu, right? But in Olam Haba, right, the truth is they say that Leah is really the wife of Yaakov Avinu. What does that mean? That the true zivug, the true wife of Yaakov Avinu was Leah, not Rachel. You understand? But this was something hidden. In this world, it's something hidden. It's more like Olam Hanistar. We don't.
That's why.
So because of that, the truth is, right, that the children who really got the lion's share of all the great positions in Israel. The sons of Leah, right? They got the kingdom, they got the Kehunah, came from Levi, right? The Kohanim, and also they got the firstborn, right? Everything. So they got everything. They got the whole pie. Most of the positions, right, were acquired by the sons of Leah. You know, so really the truth is, right, that, by the way, there's also another thing, which is that what? They say, the Chazal, that what is really the difference between, there's one of the big differences, right, as we know, we're going to have two Mashiachs coming, right? One is Mashiach ben Yosef, and one is Mashiach ben David. There's going to be Messiah from each one of these two. Why? Because they're both very noble, very great. So therefore, Messiah is going to come from both of them. What's the difference between, by the way, from one and the other? I just want to mention this because it's very important to understand. They say the Chazal that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to come before Mashiach ben David. Right? What's the reason why? Why do we need two Mashiachs? One is not enough. But you got to have two guys. One can't do the whole job. Right, exactly. So they say, right, the Chazal, the Kubbalim talk deeply about this, that really the Mashiach ben Yosef, his job is to wage war against the enemies of Hashem. Right? All the enemies of Hashem who conquered us and destroyed our Bet HaMikdash, and the ones who killed our people. You know how many Jews have been killed in Europe? Probably about 20 million Jews have been killed over there. You know, now they talk about righteousness and this and that, right? That's what they talk about, these people. Morality. 20 million Jews have killed over there in Europe, right? So Mashiach ben Yosef, his job is to go against the descendants of Esav. What does that mean? Rome, to go and make a wage war with all the enemies of Hashem. Hezbollah, Iran, you know, Syria, this, that, Hamas, Hamas, everybody. You understand? He's going to go and wage war against everybody. That's Mashiach ben Yosef.
Ishmael and Esav?
I'm sorry? Yeah, both Ishmael and Esav, exactly. Right? So they say, right, the Mashiach ben Yosef is going to wage very, very, very big battles against and he's going to go, as it says, right, and there's a pasuk, there's a verse in Yirmiyahu Navi, in Jeremiah. It says over there, Im lo ischavum tzirei atzon. Right? What does that mean? It's talking about the destruction of Rome over there.
Yeah.
Right? There's many passages that talk about this, but this is one of them. So it says over there, right, that what? Who's going to be the one who destroys Rome? Who's the one, the Esav, descendants of Esav? It's going to be Yosef. How do we know that? Because it says Tzirei Atzon. What does that mean, Tzirei Atzon? You know what that means in Hebrew? That means the young sheep. Young flocks, right, of sheep. What does that have to do with Yosef? What? Yeah, Yosef was a sheep? Right? So,
Because the dip is bigger than
Which son of Jacob did David come from?
from Paris, from Yehuda.
From Paris?
So now tells us Chazal, right? Tzirei Atzon, the young sheep. Who's that talking about? It's talking about the descendants of Yosef. Why is that? Because they were the youngest of the tribes, right? Yosef was the youngest of the brothers. Binyamin and Yosef were the youngest, right? Exactly. So Tzirei Atzon, these two the youngest ones of the tribes, right? Yosef and Binyamin has also part in that. But the point is that Yosef is the one, right? It says, right, that we talked about, remember the whole thing that we talked about several months ago. The Yaakov Avinu, when he left to go to the Beit of Lavan, to the house of Lavan, he saw a ladder, right, with angels going up and down. So the Chazal explained, right, that ladder with those angels going up and down was also giving him a sign about the 4 exiles that are going to be amongst the Jewish people, right? The four major exiles. So the last one is going to be what? Esav, right? The Galut Edom, right? The exile of Esav. So what happened was that Yaakov Avinu, he saw over there something very strange, right? All the other exiles, they pretty much had a time limit. You know, they ended pretty rapidly, right? The Galut, the first exile of Babel, was only 70 years, right? So usually, you know, they start and they finish promptly. When it comes to Galut of Edom, of Esav, it was just going forever, you know, like up, down. So Yaakov was like looking at this, you know, oh my God, like, you know, when is this thing going to end? It's forever. 2,000 years. Yeah. When is the Galut of Esav going to end? So Kadosh Baruch Hu, he said, you know, he tried to console him. He told Yaakov, he says, don't worry, he says, my son. He says, one little flame will come out of your son Yosef and destroy all of Esav. Nothing will be left over from him. That's Mashiach ben Yosef. Right? That's Mashiach ben Yosef is going to wage war against Edom. And by the way, the Gemara says in Baal Batra, Gemara, that Mashiach ben Yosef is really supposed to die during those wars, right? What does that mean? That once Mashiach ben Yosef goes out to wage war against the Goyim, so then they're going to mobilize all the Goyim, right? Especially Esav, somebody called Armilus, right? Armilus was a descendant of Esav. This guy, right? He's going to come and wage war, and this Armilus guy will try to take revenge on Mashiach ben Yosef and kill him. That's what it says, right? And then Mashiach ben David will come after that. But I must tell you that even though in the Talmud it says this,
changed.
There's two opinions over there in Talmud, right? Whether he's supposed to die or not. But in the Zohar Kadosh, in the Zohar, right, it says that what? That Mashiach ben Yosef will not die. Even though the original plan that he was supposed to die, by the way, that's the original plan. That was changed. The plan was changed, rearranged, right? How is it changed and rearranged? Because what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu, right, he saw with Ruach HaKodesh, he saw with his prophecy that Mashiach ben Yosef is supposed to die. You know? So he felt bad for that, right? He felt very, very bad. Why? The truth is, right, that they say in the Zohar Kadosh that Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David and Moshe Rabbeinu, it's really one unit, it's one neshama. What does that mean? That Moshe Rabbeinu, when Mashiach comes, Moshe Rabbeinu will also come with them, because he's really part of that. Moshe Rabbeinu is the Mashiach. Right? So it says in Zohar Kadosh that the right hand of Moshe Rabbeinu is Mashiach ben David. The left hand of Moshe Rabbeinu is Mashiach ben Yosef. So really, it's really one unit, you understand? They're going to be together.
Zohar Kadosh said that Moshe Rabbeinu is the Mashiach ben David.
Exactly. He is, that is a neshama of the soul. Right? But there's three people, you understand? Why? Because we have the right side and we have the left side.
Yeah.
So we have to understand what that means. If we get a chance, we'll explain that. Right? The point is, Rabbatai, that say the Chazal, says in Zohar Kadosh, that Moshe Rabbeinu, once he saw that Mashiach ben Yosef is supposed to die, so what he did was he prayed for that he shouldn't die, and he accepted upon himself suffering, in this world, to atone for the sin of Mashiach ben Yosef, that he shouldn't die. So therefore it says in Zohar Kadosh, because of the suffering that he took upon himself, to atone for the sin of Mashiach ben Yosef, so therefore Mashiach ben Yosef now will not die. That's what's in Zohar Kadosh. This is a deep understanding of what's going on there. Yeah.
And that came after.
The Zohar?
Yeah.
I'm sorry? Which came after what? The Talmud or the Zohar you're asking?
No, I'm
Which came after which?
The new news came after the old news. It wasn't so much it was altered,
It's a very good question, David.
as much as
a very good question, David. Amazing question. I must tell you that I want to answer your question, because this is a very important question. The truth is, if you look at the chronology, right, of these books that were written, the Zohar Kadosh and the Talmud, so the truth is, right, that the Talmud was written after the Zohar. You understand? So what does that mean? That really the Talmud, in halakha and Jewish law, it's more accepted than the Zohar. Why? Because the Talmud was accepted by all of Am Yisrael. The Talmud Bavli, right? There's two Talmuds. There's the Jerusalem, there's the Bavli, there's the Iraqi, right? Talmud. That's the one we go like. We go like the Iraqi one, the Babylonian Talmud, right? Which was made by the rabbis of Babylonian. So what happened was that it was accepted, and according to halakha, halakha is more like the Talmud Bavli. But when it comes to, what happened was like this, right? That the rabbis of the Talmud never really saw the Zohar. Why is that? Because since it was written, after a little while, it got hidden. Became hidden, right? Got buried somewhere, in the archived. It got archived somewhere, you understand? So since it was archived, the Zohar Kadosh, the rabbis of the Talmud never saw the Zohar. And also, by the way, there's the Rambam, and all the rabbis, Rashi, they never saw the Zohar.
So what are you saying? That his death was predicted not
So what happened was like this, right? That the rabbis of the Talmud had a dispute whether Mashiach ben Yosef was supposed to die or not, right? But the Zohar says that what? That the truth is that he's not going to die. You understand? It's a deeper,
before.
Right, exactly. Before the Talmud, actually. Right, exactly. It got hidden. So then what happened was that the Zohar reappeared.
The writer of the Zohar is also in the Talmud.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yes. By the way, but the truth is that you have to, you have the little caveat there, because even though Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai appears in the Talmud, but the Talmud was not written in the period of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai was in the period of the Mishnah.
Yeah.
Before that, right?
Before the Talmud.
So what happened was the Talmud actually was written about 500 years after Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. It just happens to be that the traditions of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai brought down there. Yeah. But he was not alive when the Talmud was written. He was not alive at that time.
So in a way, it's like it was predicted that Trump was going to fire Rex Tillerson even before he became president.
That's very interesting. Okay, I don't know. Maybe you can find that somewhere. I don't know.
You're saying that one of the writers of the writer of the Zohar is also one of the writers of the Mishnah?
He's brought down in the Mishnah. He didn't write the Mishnah. The Mishnah was written by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. right? Which was
Hand wrote the whole, both wrote the
he wrote it down exactly. It's not really a big, very, very, very big body of work. It's not such a big body.
No, I mean people came and
Relatively
gave,
small,
their,
right?
gave their information. He wrote it down.
So anyway, Rabbi, says the.
Quiet.
That's okay. It says the Zohar Kadosh that Mashiach ben Yosef will not die, right? And therefore he's gonna survive. But anyway, Rabbi, getting back to what we said, Mashiach ben Yosef is a little bit different, as we said, right? That the Zohar Kadosh says that Mashiach ben Yosef is the left hand of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Mashiach ben David is the right hand. That in Torah, in Kabbalah, has a very big significance. Why? Because the right hand, right, is a sign of chesed, kindness, right? And the left hand is a sign of din, right, of judgment, exactly. So the quality of Mashiach ben Yosef is more judgment. What does that mean? He's going to wage wars, right? Judge the enemies of Hashem. He's going to put judgment on them, right? Because Mashiach ben David is all about chesed. It has nothing to do with judgment. You know, it's giving only kindness, bestowing kindness to the world. He will never, Mashiach ben David will never wage war with anybody. You understand? He won't have to. You know why? Because if he finds somebody that's guilty of something, he'll just say something and the person will die. Like his word will just kill him. He won't have to raise a finger. You understand? He'll have such power with his mouth, you know, that he'll just say, right, you are guilty. He's going to die on the spot right there. That's it. That's he doesn't have to do anything with his hands. Mashiach ben David does everything with his mouth. He doesn't raise his hand for anything. Right? Gentleman, you know? Nothing, the hand is never used. Right? Just the mouth. That's it. That's all there is. So, Rabbi, what we're saying is that Mashiach ben Yosef, right, is judgment. So this is the reason why he has to come, right, and do judgment on the enemies of Hashem. So we're gonna now talk about Yosef, right? What's the story over here? So amazing story. This narrative is amazing. There's so much to talk about. You know, we're gonna take time, but maybe we'll see what we can get. So it says, right, that Yosef now. It's brought to Egypt after he was sold already twice, right? We said. Now he's sold the third time again to Potiphar, right? Who was Potiphar? Potiphar was one of the ministers of Paro, right? What was his job, by the way? He had two jobs. The Chazal tell us, right? One was he was chief executioner, you know, like hitman. He was a hitman of Paro. Somebody had to be rubbed out. He was the one who does the job. You understand? That's one job that he was a killer, basically. You know, cold-blooded killer, right? That's one job. The other job was also that he was a slaughter guy. You know, he used to slaughter animals, right? He had animals of Paro, and Paro wanted to have dinner with meat, so he would slaughter, right? So basically his job was to kill animals and people, right? More one or the other. He was a killer, right? He killed everything. Anything he could get his hands on, he killed. So that's the way he was, Potiphar, right? Potiphar is a dangerous guy. So, right, with his luck, right, Yosef is sold to this guy, right? Not all the other people, so sell him to this guy, right? This killer, this executioner. So what happens is, Chazal tell us, now we're going to get to this whole thing about the Germanic people, right? We're going to talk about this now. Right, so all of a sudden, they bring the slave, right, Yosef, right, to the house of Potiphar. So they say, oh, you want to buy this guy? We have a slave for you. Yeah, you like him? No? What do you think? So Potiphar takes a look at Yosef. He says, what, are you kidding me? He says, this is a slave? He says, he looks like a German. He looks like, you know, he's a white boy. He's a white guy, you know? He says, you guys are dark. You know, you're Arabs, you know, Bedouins, you know, you're dark. He says, you look like slaves. He looks like your master. He says, are you sure that this guy's a slave? He looks like the master. You look like slaves, he tells them, you know? I don't believe you. Usually slaves are not German. They're not white. You know, Germanic looking. You know? You understand? That's what he told them. So they said, no, don't worry, we bought him from this people, and they there's some kind of an argument with him, there's some kind of this dispute, they sold their brother, this and that, whatever. Don't worry, everything is fine, don't worry, there's not going to be any problems with him. So he says, you know what? He says, I want guarantee in writing, he says. Can you give me in writing guarantee? He asked for a guarantee. Can you imagine? He says, if something happens, right, they come and complain about this guy, that he was stolen from somewhere. So he says, you're going to give me my money back. I'm not going to buy him for no reason, I don't believe you that this guy's a slave. So they had no choice but they gave him a guarantee in writing. They gave him a guarantee, that if something happens, they'll get the money back. Okay. So the question is now like this, right? The Chazal discuss one thing. What is the reason why Potiphar bought this guy to be a slave? What was his motive? What does he want him to do? Right, to plow his farm. Right? Does he want him to to clean the house? Do mop the floor? What does he need a slave for, this guy? Right? So the truth is, right, that I'm going to tell you something, a little joke. You understand, right? They say that when Potiphar, right? We know that Potiphar's wife also, was very attracted to Yosef, right? We're going to talk about that also. So the truth is, right, that this guy was the same. He was no different than Potiphar's wife. When he saw Yosef, it was like love at first sight. You understand? Oh, you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah, love at first sight. So once he saw Yosef, he said, I'm going to buy this guy. He's going to be my
lover.
Yeah, that's it.
Was there a rumor that Potiphar was a eunuch?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that now. We're going to explain to you how that happened. It's a good question. Good question. So, what's the story over there? What happened over here? So he bought him basically because it was love at first sight. If you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So that's what he wanted him for, not for anything else. You don't buy, a guy like this, to do your housework. He's not this kind of a guy. So what happened was that once HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that was his intention, so he sent the Malach Gabriel, right, and he castrated him. Made him castration, right? So therefore, his plans were foiled, right? He wanted to buy him for that, but it didn't work out the way he thought. Right?
Who castrated Paro?
Hashem sent an angel and castrated him. Not Paro. This was Potiphar. This is the servant of Paro, right? Potiphar. Right, exactly. Potiphar. So God castrated, right? What happened now? God, now, since he can't use him for his original purpose, so now he's using him for household, things. So what happened was that right away, right, Potiphar, once he looked at Yosef, and he saw his nature, he saw his behavior, he said, this man is a man of God. He's a holy man. Not a regular guy, this guy, I thought he was just like a good-looking German, handsome German guy, but this guy is like holy, holy of holies.
Like Arthur.
So what happened was that because he saw that Hashem was with him, the Shekhinah, the divine presence was with him. Right. He saw the holiness, He was a Messiah, He was a Messiah, So he looks like a Messiah to the guy. So what happened was that he appointed him to be over all his household, right? He made him like the head of the household, the manager, like chief of staff, He made him chief of staff. By the way, that's what happened with Yosef. Everywhere he went, wherever he went, he was always made the manager over there, right? The chief of staff, right? Everybody saw that he was like smart, reliable, leadership qualities, good looking, charming. So everybody just wanted to leave everything in his hands. This guy won't steal anything. He won't cheat me. He won't lie to me. Honest Joe. You know what I'm saying? Forget it. Honest Joseph. So I guess that's why they use that word, honest Joe, right? Whatever. So the point is, right, that they made him now. He became the king of the household over there. That's what happened. Everywhere he went, it happened like that. That's the way it was. It's like it's a mashal, right? The allegory is that wherever you put oil, it always rises to the top. This guy, that's the way he was. Wherever you put him, he went to the top. That's the way he was. There was no such a thing he wasn't a mediocre person. You know what I mean? Always to the top. So what happens is that right now he sees Yosef, that instead of being a slave, he became the chief of staff. It's an amazing upgrade over here he got all of a sudden, right? So he's very happy now, right? Why is he happy? He says, wow, Hashem, saved me. He gave me over here a good life. I'm eating fancy foods, fancy meals, drinking wine, having a good time, laughing, enjoying life. All of a sudden, he started to look in the mirror also, right? So he's looking in the mirror. He sees he's a very handsome guy. He starts to realize, oh my God, I look pretty good. Pretty handsome guy, right? So what does he do? He starts to style his hair, right? He buys one of those, those hair things, those wave makers, So he starts to make waves in his hair, curls, and growing his hair long, looking like, David Coverdale, whatever, right? So looking like this, and wow, having the time of his life. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at him, that he's enjoying life a little bit too much over here. So what does he say about him? What he says about Yosef? He says, listen, your father is sitting at home and mourning about you. He thinks you're dead. Crying day and night. Tears are going down into his shirt. And you're sitting over here having a time of your life? Shame on you. You shouldn't be like that. So therefore, he says, you know what I'm going to do to you now? I'm going to give you a lot of problems. Because you're enjoying life too much. In a situation like this, you shouldn't be enjoying life. You understand? There's a situation for everything. We have to know. When things are really down, when things are really, there's a disaster. You're looking at a disastrous life over here. So you have to be, you have to live according to where
it's not his fault though. In the way they made him into this.
Right, but they say that what? By the way, one of the most important concepts in Judaism, you know what it is? I must tell you that when the community is in distress, you don't have permission to go out and just make yourself happy and ignore that. Even though it's not really your personal distress. There's a distress in the community. So you have to you have to participate with that. You understand? Don't just run off, oh yeah, I don't care about that. It's not me, it has nothing to do with me. It's not in my family. That's the way it should be, A person should participate in the distress of the community. So this is exactly what he was expected to do. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing.
Remember when Whitney Houston died, and at the same time they were partying upstairs. I think you remember there was a big criticism because everybody that was there partying, they knew that she died already in the bathtub.
Yeah.
She overdosed or whatever, and they still kept partying.
Right. Anyway, the point is that here we're talking about very important people, right? I mean,
No, I'm just making the point.
She's got a good voice, but anyway, the point is, So anyway, the point is that this is why Hakadosh Baruch Hu said, "What are you doing, Hakadosh Baruch Hu?" He said, "I'm going to give you now. You think you're having a good time over here, huh? So I'm going to give you some problems
He was
now."
punished because he don't go back to his father.
Not because he wasn't able to go back, because he was sold as a slave. He was a slave over there. Once you go into Mitzrayim, into Egypt as a slave, you cannot leave anymore. You have to get permission to leave. So he certainly could not leave.
Messenger or something.
No, that's not the thing. He wasn't expected to do any of those things. But what he was expected to do is to participate in the distress of his father, and not have a good time. When your father, is on his deathbed, and said, "You're going to have a party." What kind of thing is that? Have a little, a little bit seichel. Where's your mind? You cannot have a party. If you're your father is in the hospital, on a respirator.
Did he know though?
Of course he knew, because he knew he was mourning for him, right? He's not going to have a good time. That was his favorite son, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think is going to happen? So what happens is, right, the Kadosh Baruch Hu decides to give him now a test, right? As we said, right, that Chazal teach us, the Midrash, that when Kadosh Baruch Hu loves somebody, he tests him. He wants to see if he's really going to be loyal to him, all the way. Even though things are going to get difficult, and there's going to be disaster, there's going to be very much distress, there's going to be, it looks like there's no recovery from this, It looks like it's like a terminal problem. Kadosh Baruch Hu will take him even to that level, to see how he's going to behave. Is he going to be loyal to me, even there, or is he going to give up and, become a bum? That's the way it is. So Yosef HaTzadik, in his mind, you know what he had in his mind? They say the Chazal. Something amazing. It says in Midrash that he said, you know what? It says, my grandfather was tested, Avraham Avinu. Right? He got 10 trials. He passed all of them. My father was also tested, Yaakov, right? Tested, passed everything. My grandfather, Yitzchak, was also, every one of them was tested. Right? It says, therefore, since all my forefathers were tested, I don't need to be tested anymore. Right? Meaning what? That I'm already considered to be already from the good stock. Right? Right, exactly. So he said, you know what? I don't need to be tested anymore. Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, oh yeah, you think so? Now we're going to test you. You think so, huh? You have to be tested too. Don't think that you can run off from the test. What kind of test is this, right? As we said, right, this poor guy was castrated, so, he's out of the picture already. But he has a wife, you understand, who's also a problem, Potiphar's wife. So Potiphar's wife is sitting there, right, and Yosef HaTzadik is coming to serve them, right? He's like as a butler, drinks and this and that, And Potiphar's wife, just like every other woman, she has also, her girlfriends, that she brings over for tea, sip some tea, have a little cocktail, this and that, whatever, talk some gossip. Whatever. So they come to her house, right? Her friends, and she tells them like this, right? The Midrash teaches us this, right? Says, I want to show you. Says, how handsome is my butler? Says, if you see him, I says, I guarantee you're going to faint from this is so handsome, this guy. Says, I have to go through this day and night. I have to look at him, and the temptation is so great. I don't know what to do anymore. He says, I can't live. I wanna be with him so much. I have no rest. So he says, I'm gonna call him now, right? And you're gonna see how handsome he is. But he says, I'm warning you, don't fall out of your chair. Once you
pass out.
You understand? So, okay, he says, okay, Yosef, bring us the cocktails. Okay. So he brings, right, the cocktails, it's got good. So like the women have like these cups in their hands, right? So once they saw him, they start to like bite the cup, like their teeth grinded, it says, right? So they went nuts, when they saw him. Nuts, they went out of their mind. So he says, now you see what's going on over here? This is what I have to deal with every day. The temptation is so great, I don't know what to do. Those are girlfriends, understand?
And her husband is also a eunuch now?
Yeah, exactly. So, so what happens is like this, right? That she now devises a scheme to be with him, right? By the way, before she did this though, she did something else first. She went to her local astrologer, right? One of these Divabi people, whatever. Goes to them, says, you know what? Says, I want to know. Can you read my fortune? Read my fortune. I want to see if I'm destined to be with this guy or not. If it's my destiny or not. So
great stuff.
So they look it up in the crystal ball, right? Whatever, hocus pocus, abracadabra. So they told her, says, you're a lucky lady. He says, your destiny is to be with him. Can you imagine? That's what they told her, right? And this was actually true, by the way, but she had to understand how it was true. She didn't really understand what happened over here. So she says, oh wow, she says, my destiny is to be with this guy. He says, oh wow, that's it, I have now carte blanche.
But she was
I have a free pass.
She was also very good looking.
Okay, so anyway, the point is, right, I have carte blanche, she says. So now she starts to try to, to seduce him. So every day, right, she starts, trying to, by the way, what was her mistake? The mistake was that even though these astrologers, by the way, sometimes they have power to tell you the future. But what happens is that they don't tell you the exact, precise details. They tell you something like general, but the details are not so clear sometimes. So because of that, what happened was that they told her that her destiny was to be with Yosef, but the truth is it was only partially true. What does it mean partially true? It wasn't really her, it was her daughter that was supposed to marry Yosef, right? But they said, right, that somebody in your family, whatever, they didn't get that detail down. She thought it was her. But really, it was supposed to be her daughter. So what happened was that she thought it was her, so she started trying to seduce him. By the way, she was every day passing by, wearing like different clothes, changing her outfits, like every time, Every hour, different outfit. This outfit, that outfit, this, all kinds of, everything in the book, right? Nothing is spared. This guy's rich, he's wealthy, he's a minister. So every day, something else, changing her outfits, going this, and then, right, asking him, what, do you want to be with me? You want to be with me? Right? Trying to, talk with him, to see if, he'll look at her, check her out, this and that, whatever. This went on, by the way, she was propositioning him day and night. How long did it go? Says the Midrash, it went for 1 year. This whole thing. Can you imagine? 1 year, she was trying to seduce him. And every time he was trying to run away from her. He wouldn't even look at her. He didn't even want to see what her clothes look like, what her shoes look like, what her hair looks like, this, that, whatever. Every time she would come, turn around like this, close his eyes.
So he wasn't interested.
He was interested, actually. The truth is, right? And we're going to discuss that, by the way. The truth, he was attracted to her too. But because of his great righteousness, right? Because he came from such a good family, and because of his own personal righteousness, so he was able to resist this. Can you imagine? This was a very, very big trial. 1 year of this going on, right? Day and night, day and night, day and night. Propositioning him day and night. Proposition.
So
proposition,
here's a guy
proposition.
that his own vanity gets to his head, and he's over there, looking at himself,
right,
and this and that, and yet he has the ability to
resist, right? Exactly, exactly. This is an amazing thing, right? It's a very Jewish thing, by the way. It's a very Jewish kind of approach.
Also, he's indebted to Potiphar. He doesn't want to. Potiphar has made him his chief.
Yes. So anyway, what was the discussion going on between them? By the way, she was saying to him, looking at us, said, let's have an affair. What do you care?
It'll be fun.
I said, nobody will find out. I'm not going to tell nobody. It's going to be hush hush between me and you. So he says, but God knows. God sees everything. What do you think? It would hide it from Hashem? You can't hide for anything from God. I don't care if people know. It's Hashem knows. So she says, tries to tell him, but you know what? We're destined to be together. I looked at the astrologer, this and that, because we're just. But he says, you know what? I don't know what the destiny. I don't know what we're talking about destiny. But he said, I just know one thing. I'm not allowed to be with you for 2 reasons. He says, one thing is because you're a married woman. Number 1, I cannot commit adultery. Number 2 is because you're not Jewish, right? So he says, even if you were not married, the fact that you're not Jewish also prevents me from being with you. So it says, either way, right? I have a problem. I cannot be with you. So, after this, right, going on day and night, this propositioning stuff, so then she finally starts, in the end, right, she sees it, cannot get to this guy, right? It's impossible. It's invincible. Invincible barrier. So what happens is that she starts now to threaten him. Just the opposite, right? If you don't do it, I'm gonna tell people that you did it. I'm gonna squeal on you. I'm gonna put you in jail. I'm gonna frame you. Right? I'll call the FBI. You know those guys over there, right? Peter and those guys, right?
No
Lisa, right?
No girl ever did that.
Yeah. So come. She threatens him like this. If you don't do it, I'm going to put you in jail. I'm going to have you this, and I'm going to have you framed. You're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your life.
She was obsessed, basically.
Obsessed. So
I know what it is to be obsessed.
Okay. This is old stuff he's talking about. Okay. So anyway, the point is, Rabotai, that in the end, you know what he would answer her if she would threaten him? You put me in jail? He says, Hashem will take me out. What's the problem? My God will do everything. Whatever you try to do to me, Hashem will save me. That was his answer. I believe in Hashem. I don't believe in nothing you say. I don't care about you. So in the end, this goes on for a year. Can you imagine? In the end, by the way, they say that Yosef was actually thinking about doing it, Mm-hmm. He was actually, it wore off on him, this whole thing. Right, understand? Right. Everybody's human.
Yeah.
He was actually getting to the point where he was ready. So what happens is, right, that now they have like a holiday, these people, right? Every nation has their holiday, so they have a holiday, these people, right? So the holiday means that everybody goes to church, nobody's home. They go out, whatever. So that day, Yosef, obviously he's not going to go to church, with them. He has no business over there, right? So she also didn't go, you understand, that day. Why? Because she told him, he says, I don't feel good, I'm sick, my stomach is hurting me, But the excuse was to be with him, you understand? That was the whole idea. So what happens is now Yosef, now a tzaddik, decides to come that day. He knows nobody's there besides her, right? So there's 2 opinions, by the way, regarding this, right? One says he was coming to do his work, actually, just to, because he was a bookkeeper also, he was like their accountant, so he was going to do their books, right? That day, bookkeeping. That was one opinion. The other opinion was that he was actually he wanted to be with her, you understand? So what happened was, according to the opinion that he wanted to be with her, so what happened? He got a phone call that day, right? From the heavens. Right. What happened was that his father came to him, right? The image of his father came to him, and he said, "Don't you dare go with that woman today. I know what you want to do." He warned him. So because of that, he was able to save himself, because he saw the image of his father telling him like that, no. Like this, So because of that, that's what made him to hold his line that day. So anyway, he goes there to do his job. And she, knows that they're alone, so she wants to now, this is the final try over here, right? So she goes in front of him and she says, no, come on. Tries to grab him like this. No, come on, let's go. So he decides to run off, right? So what happened was that since in those days they used to wear like a talit, in those days, like a shawl, that shawl is not really attached to your sleeve. So she pulled it off of him, trying to grab him. So he ran off, but she got the shawl, right, the talit. So she sees that nothing is going to work with this guy, right? No, she's not going to get him. So she decides to sell him out, right? What does that mean? That she told everybody, right, that he came to me, and I grabbed the shawl to prove to you that actually he attacked me. He wanted to rape me. That's what she tried to frame him. You understand? That's exactly what happened. But before that, before we get into this story, maybe we'll do that next week, right? But I want to tell you guys that what happened was over here was like this, right? That they say that when they got into this like pushing and shoving like this, yanking back and forth, tug of war, right? So he got really excited, you understand? So they say, right, that what happened was that he got so excited that he lost 10 drops of sperm from his body. Came out because of this. Right? What do I care about that? Why is the Torah teaching me about sperm, 10 drops of sperm? What do I care about that?
Why not?
Right, what is it, what does it want to, it has to teach you something there, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you call it? So what's the answer? They say the Chazal, by the way, something amazing about this. They say that Yosef HaTzadik really was supposed to be the father of the 12 tribes himself. Meaning what? His 12 children, he was supposed to have 12 children. And his 12 children were supposed to be the tribes. And the other brothers were supposed to be out of the picture. That was the original plan.
No, Ramchal says otherwise. That he was supposed to have 6 tribes from him, 6 tribes from there.
I'm talking about what the Chazal say. Right? The Chazal say like this. Chazal say that he was supposed to be out of the picture. That's interesting. Can you show me that, by the way? Because I never saw this one. So anyway, what the Chazal say that really what happened was that he was supposed to have 12 tribes. 12 children were supposed to come to Yosef HaTzadik only. And the other brothers, out of the picture. So what happened was that because those 10 drops of sperm came out of him, he lost 10 children because of that. In other words, he only had 2 sons. You understand? That's what happened. So you can see, right, the severe punishment that he got just because 10 drops of sperm came out. Amazing. Right? And by the way, there's also another thing you should know. We look now at the negative side, right, of this whole thing. But let's look at the positive side. Because he was able to refrain from being with this woman for 1 year. This crazy antics. 1 year of crazy antics like this. So it says in Zohar Kadosh, this was the reason why he was Zocheh, Yosef HaTzadik, to become king. Why is that? They say, right, the king, by the way, to be a king, there's one main ingredient. You have to be wealthy. Because if you're poor, nobody's going to make you king. You have to be like a billionaire, like Trump, you got to be one of these guys. You have to be very wealthy. So, what happens is like this, right? That, as we said, the prerequisite of being a king is being wealthy. So, we see from there, the Chazal say, Zohar Kadosh, that the Yosef HaTzadik, the reason why he got the wealth and the kingdom, why he became king, was because he refrained from being with this woman. So we see from there, by the way, that what the Zohar Kadosh says, that a person really wants to become wealthy, and he wants to be a ruler. Not that you should be one of that. You shouldn't want to be a ruler. But what I'm saying is that a person, how can you have this merit to be a ruler in the Jewish people? By avoiding, spoiling your brit, right? Pogem bebrit. Pogem bebrit. What does that mean? How does a person spoil his brit? Brit means the circumcision, right? A person is circumcised. So he's a holy person, right? After he becomes circumcised. He acquires a holiness. How does he ruin that holiness? By committing adultery, right? Or going with a woman who's not Jewish, Goya. That's what kills it, right? Or this masturbation, right? Exactly like you said, spilling a seed. So since Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef HaTzadik, what's the reason? So the Zohar Kadosh says, we see from there, Yosef HaTzadik became king because of this. So what does that mean? The Zohar says that a person who can refrain from this spoiling his brit, he is going to acquire kingdom. He's going to acquire wealth and kingdom. That's a reward. But a person who loses it loses something from there. He loses the wealth and kingdom from there. That's what causes the destruction, right, of the wealth and kingdom. Okay, Rabbi, so we'll stop here. Chazak u'baruch. God bless you. Thank you for coming.
If I go to